Avishka, if I may begin with you, I just want to keep the tonality very informal because I happen to be a mother to a 13-year-old who always tells me, I want to learn more, but, the legal jargon sort of gets boring. But I want to actually bring to the point why we are having this discussion is, of course, the month of March, which saw some international headlines, and that was also the case of Yashwant Verma. And that's why I want to ask you, when the Allahabad High Court says that you can't make us the dumping ground, where is the onus? Who takes accountability?
Well, I'd start by saying that the Supreme Court is currently cognizant of the matter and a 3-member committee has been formulated. So I would exercise restraint in saying anything about the impending investigation. But
about the accountability bit.
Yes, precisely. On the larger issue of, judicial independence and accountability and transparency, these are two constructs that go hand in hand. You cannot have one or the other. The independence of the judiciary lies at the heart of our constitution, and it is part of the basic structure. And it is an uncompromising value that and a virtue that we must all live by. Because the judiciary is the foremost institution when it comes to protecting the liberties and freedoms of our citizens. When it comes to accountability of judges, the Indian system is unique insofar as it has the Collegium as opposed to the other jurisdictions in the country. The Indian courts, function by judges appointing judges, and there's a long evolution of the law. I don't want to take you through the judgments, but the upshot of this whole thing is that today we have a system where the Collegium, the top 5 judges of the Supreme Court, appoint all the judges. And it happens in a rather opaque manner. So the Collegium is not the best system that is there. However, the alternate that is there, which is the appointments by an executive interference, would also not, in my view, be a system that would be desirable. Because the Collegium, for whatever follies it is still the best option in safeguarding the independence of the judiciary.
But when you're talking about the follies, I want to bring you in on that note. In the year 2022, the law minister shared a figure of 1,600 cases where there were complaints against High Court and Supreme Court judges, but there could be no action taken. What do you do about it then? I'd like to bring
Yes.
So I think the Indian judiciary has a serious accountability problem. And I think we must all be open in admitting that. The fact is that the provisions for accountability of the judges that were made in the Constitution were limited to impeachment. Because we felt that these are persons of such high stature that it's unlikely that there will be too many allegations against them. And by and large, this is largely correct. But over the course of time, as society has gone in the way in which it has, it's foolish to think that judges will become islands of excellence and will remain immune from the rest of what we see in society. Judges are part of the society, and so if the society is going to become more and more corrupt, then the judiciary is also going to go the same way. So if we were to come to the immediate instance of the Yashwant Verma case that you're talking about, my 3 co-panelists argue in court every day, so they may be a little bit more restrained. I don't have that restraint. But the point is, while not commenting on the case itself, because as he rightly said, there are 3 judges who are inquiring into the matter, I think there are 2 points that need to be made. The first is that we can't transfer judges about whom there is some suspicion. Transfer of judges cannot be done on the basis of the fact that there is something problematic about a judge. Because an Allahabad High Court or earlier a Sikkim High Court or Guwahati High Court has a right to have judges who are entirely above board. So just because there is a cloud transfer, the gentleman somewhere is not a solution. So my sympathies with the Allahabad.
So where is the solution? Perhaps pause a bit and think what should have been done. Maybe demand the resignation, maybe just pause the transfer, go for an inquiry. Wait for the inquiry?
So the inquiry is happening, and I think the answer lies in 2 things. The first is that I think there needs to be a quick time-bound inquiry that needs to take place with a quick resolution as to whether the gentleman is, in this case, is that cash, which is allegedly been found burning in his house, did that cash in any way belong to him? Because it's really unfair on the gentleman. We all know Justice Yashwant Verma is one of the finest judges in the Delhi High Court. If by any chance he is innocent, then this has damaged his reputation irreparably. So we need, not only from the point of view of judicial accountability, but also fairness of the person. And the previous gentleman was talking about fairness during Chhatrapati Shivaji's time. I think fairness in constitutional democracy in India requires the fact that there be a quick and speedy resolution. If the person is guilty, then make sure that impeachment proceedings happen quickly. And if the person is not, then please make sure that he can continue doing his work in the Delhi High Court.
You used a very interesting word, impeachment proceedings. I want to bring Sumit on that note. Impeachment. So far, we've not seen any impeachment of a Supreme Court or a High Court or a lower court judge. Why so? Should they be enjoying such impunity?
See, there is a provision in the Constitution which provides for impeachment in certain cases. Now, just because in the impeachment process, you need majority of both the houses of the parliament, if they feel that yes, things need, a certain judge needs to be impeached, by all means that process should go on. Now, just because that is not happening or not happening at a greater speed doesn't mean that you start getting involved into the Collegium system. You start blaming the entire judicial system. There's an investigation process that is happening. Impeachment is an act of the parliament. The parliament needs to do it. If the parliament is taking time to do it or not doing it in certain matters, you can't again go back to the judiciary and say that, listen, it's because of the judiciary that the parliament is not acting upon. Impeachment is a process in law. It can happen. It should happen in cases where it is deserving.
All right. But Ashish, if we look at the overall process of in-house inquiries also, proponents would, in fact, of those who feel that this can also be an executive decision, say that as far as in-house inquiries are concerned, they lack transparency. And that, is this going to be reliable enough a procedure? Questions are being raised about the authenticity of an in-house inquiry as well. We've had multiple cases where judges have been exonerated. The Karnataka High Court judges who were exonerated from sex scandals some years ago. I think it was 2014. So now they're saying that it's high time that the NJAC should be brought in. Your take.
See, we have to see the background in which all these provisions were included in our constitution. We have to understand that initially, before this first judge's case came, the appointments were being done by the executive. But it is only when in the 1970s, the judges were superseded and executive and the parliament and the government of that day exercised much greater influence. I think this concept of appointment by collegium was introduced, and it's not in the constitution. It's an interpretation of the word that when the consent of the CGI is taken, that is interpreted to be binding. Now, this is a system which is going on for last 30 odd years, and we have seen that yes, collegium system will have its issues. The government tried to bring in an NJAC, but the difficulty with the NJAC was the composition of NJAC. It included the CGI, 2 sitting judges, law minister, and the difficult part was 2 eminent persons who were given the voting rights, and those people were to be selected by the government. So this was the situation wherein the Supreme Court said that if these people who are so-called eminent people are not given voting rights, then it can be considered. And there is a misnomer in the general public that the government has no role in the appointment. In every appointment, government has a very important role, and government views are taken, IB views are taken, and it is a consultative process. Yes, there has to be a little bit more transparency, but that also has its negative side. Because if suppose a person is a candidate for a judge, if he is rejected and that is declared in public before, then his entire practice gets affected. So that part has also to be balanced. Now, coming to the specific case of Justice Verma, as my friends have said, he's one of the finest judges we have seen in Delhi High Court. We all are surprised. And the inquiry is on. Perhaps the judges who were conducting the inquiry have now gone back and started holding their courts. Maybe we are going to see something very soon. But the difficulty is the protection which has been given to the judges in the constitution and the purpose for which the judiciary is there, that it is the watchdog of the constitution. Eventually, it is the judiciary where everyone will go when their rights are violated. So we need to create a mechanism where those people are also protected. If you see Election Commission of CIC and all those people.
I think that's a very valid point.
Because these people have to be protected.
How do you weigh in on that? And when we look at the Collegium being challenged, many are saying that, it is going to be anti-constitutional also because it is diluting the division of powers.
See, ultimately, we have to follow the dicta of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has said authoritatively with 9 judges. The NJAC was merely following the earlier judgment of the second judge's case in the 9 judges. So there was no doubt in my mind that the NJAC would have been struck down and the 99th constitutional amendment would be declared unconstitutional on account of it being violative of the earlier judgment. Now, the issue today is more fundamental. It is at the stage of selection of the judges. That is the area where you can employ more safeguards in the collegium system and actually have a more, robust mechanism where it is not as opaque as it is today. Today, the collegium system suffers from opacity, it suffers from arbitrariness, it suffers from a lack of judicial oversight, it suffers from other follies, but those follies are not, to my mind, equivalent to render the entire system undesirable and to have an NJAC sort of system, because as Soli Sorabji famously said that these are all human beings. Ultimately, human beings will be, they'll be falling foul to the integrity, to other issues. So you cannot ensure or legislate independence. Independence comes from within, and independence of the judiciary will only come by selecting the right people. And that is what should be emphasized today. And whatever happens in a particular case is not the reason for you to take a knee-jerk reaction. It must be well debated. So I'm not for a particular system. I think the current system must be reworked, tweaked, but you cannot go to NJAC, definitely.
No, but has that been a knee-jerk reaction, what we saw earlier, when Prime Minister Modi during the 2014 tenure brought it in? That. Also, when you look at talking about a corruption-free India, is the onus just left on to the executive? We expect each and every organ of the government to be corruption-free. Why should the judiciary be granted this kind of impunity?
So let me put it a little bit differently. So your daughter is 13 years old and she wants to know more about the judiciary. But she feels that this is stuck in this legal jargon, and everywhere you talk about the judges, people say that, ye to lawyer wali baat hai. So, you suddenly feel that, oh, this is a no-go area for me, because this is a technical matter. Now, this is the mindset that we need to change, because law is not something that is filled with mystique. Law is an instrument that is meant to order society and meant to make our lives easier. This seems a laughable proposition today in India, right? Because if anything, law doesn't make your life easy. No one wants to go anywhere near a court of law if they can have their way. So how do we make this easier? How do we reduce this shroud of opacity and make sure that law is something that the lay person can engage with? 3 things, which is related to appointments and accountability. I mean, there are many more. But on appointments, I mean, I have a different view from Avishkar. I think the collegium system started with all good intention, but is completely discredited at this point of time. And the reason is that it is a closed system. There is a view that it's only people appointing themselves, and there is a kind of closed brotherhood that is appointing people. Some merit to it, maybe not entirely. But I think every system has its time. This had its time. This is a system that needs to go. There needs to be a bipartisan commission of some kind. As Ashish was saying, we could think of the NJAC with some tweaks. It doesn't have to be exactly the same composition, though I must point out that the eminent persons were not appointed by the government. They were appointed by the Chief Justice, the Prime Minister, and the leader of the opposition. But we can still tweak it. But we need some kind of system that is neither the government nor the judiciary on its own. On accountability, as I said, that this appointments commission also needs to be an appointments plus accountability commission, so that inquiries are held in a manner that doesn't feel like judges are only judging themselves. So you feel like nothing will come out of it. If you looked at the Chief Justice of India, Gogoi, had a 3-member inquiry committee that was set up against him. No one really believes that that was a credible process. I mean, whether it is credible or not is a different matter. It's a great disservice to the judges also who did that, because no one believes that it was credible. So we need to ensure that this commission institution which is in charge of appointments also takes into account accountability. And the last point on transfer, transfer should not be done in these kinds of situations.
I'm taking
It
those
cannot
as
be
closing
punitive.
thoughts.
Yes, that's fine.
See, please keep in mind, I think there's been independence of judiciary is, I think, one of the core factors which should be respected. There is the three pillars of the Constitution, as we say it. We have the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature. We all the three pillars have their own roles for the governance. The fourth pillar, of course, being the media. Now, when there will be an interference between one pillar and the other, that itself will create a chaos. Any kind of a control over one over the other will go to the very premise of creating a situation where things may not work independently. If there is an involvement of the government in judiciary in any manner, whether be it appointment or in any other manner, towards the end, would that not influence judiciary? Then we are depending again on an external factor. And you think that today, if there are incidents, which are of course being taken care of, but if there are incidents, will the involvement in the appointments by the government in any manner, do you think it will create a purest form of system? No. There is a system which is created and created in a manner to protect the very institution itself.
But why hasn't the judiciary been able to ensure that if the Collegium was so reliable?
Yes, so investigation is being taken place, at least in this case.
But then again, we are questioning how reliable are the in-house judicial processes
I'll answer
themselves.
that. I'll answer that. Why? Because see, everybody deserves a fair investigation. There are accusations, of course. In this case, there was allegedly what we call a purple banana being found in one of his rooms. And of course, that bag full of money, should be, just because it was found there, no investigation should be made at all. Secondly, who came out with that video? Towards the end, it came from judiciary itself. They said, yes, let this come to the media.
There have been calls for a CBI or a TD investigation. Why not go ahead with that?
Exactly. So executive is already doing the investigation. Judiciary is, of course, keeping a check on what the investigation is. There are judges from different states who have been appointed for the purpose of this investigation.
Okay. I'm running short of time, so I have to quickly wrap that. Ashish, I want your closing thoughts, but as we discussed earlier, Mr. Chandrachud was here. And he made a very interesting point that just like the Indian Administrative Services, perhaps he's in fact one of those proponents who believe that it should also be applied to judiciary, that we should have a national level examination which is as stringent in perhaps ensuring that the best of the talent is the one that qualifies, and that he believes that it's not happening at a state level so far.
See, I'll just make one comment on NJAC. We must understand that the biggest litigant in this country is the government of India. So if you want a litigant to have a complete say in the appointment of judges, do we expect a fairness or a procedure where the good judges will be appointed? That's the thing which we have to see. No one is against the government in a consultative process, consultative mechanism. But whether the government should have the final say in the appointment is the part where, for the sake of independence of judiciary, we all have to oppose it. Now, coming to this larger issue of having the All India Judicial Service examination, this idea has been mooted for long. As of now, the examinations are conducted by the High Court. Because the district judiciary is subordinate to the High Court of that state, the examination is conducted by the High Court. And High Courts have resisted this thing because eventually it is the High Court who is responsible for the implementation of law and the manner in which the cases are decided. When we say that there is a huge pendency, government is not blamed. It is the judges who are the blamed. So they have to see whether which kind of candidates are appointed. Justice Chandrachud has a view. He did say that yes, there should be a commission, there should be a exam. And I must tell you, the examination which is done by the High Courts is equally tough, if not more. So it can be said that there can be a different mechanism, but I think as of now, the High Courts are doing a good job. The results are there. We are finding new judges. There is so much of diversity, and so many women have come forward in the district judiciary. 30 to 40% we see that there are women judges in the district judiciary. And High Court is also cognizant of this.
I'd like to give you 15
I'll just
seconds.
say that if independence of the judiciary is part of the basic structure of the Constitution, then no matter what law Parliament brings, the Supreme Court will always have the right to strike it down if that law falls foul or impinges on the independence of the judiciary. And that was the precise reason for striking down NJAC. Today, they are free to bring any law in Parliament under 368, but that law must be within the structure of the Constitution, and it should not impede in any manner the independence of the judiciary.
All right. I'm sure, ladies and gentlemen, all of you will agree that institutions are just not known by the strength of their decisions, but also by the integrity of their designs. Thank you so much for a very insightful conversation. As we all know, as far as Bharat is concerned, dharma is historic for us. It's in our civilization. Many thanks to you all for being part of Rising Bharat. It was a pleasure having you all over here.